Welcome to Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversation that includes respect for opinions, facts, and diversity. Spokane Talks is brought to you in part by McNeese Wheeler Attorneys, Ponderosa Republican Women, and Rana Paint.
Welcome to Spokane Talks. I'm Ryan McNeese. On this episode, I'll have an opportunity to sit down with the organization Big Table on business talks. Next up, on Startup Spokane, we'll have an opportunity to discuss the core ingredients that make up an entrepreneur. Then, we'll have Stephanie Regalato sitting down and talking about the essentials of skincare on She Says. And lastly, on the front porch with Cindy Haval.
Ponderosa Republican Women is a club with members that come from every part of Spokane County. Although they differ in age, occupation, ethnic background, and cultural heritage, these women and many men stand together to promote government based on conservative principles, discover lifelong friendships, meet elected officials and candidates, hear challenging speakers, receive campaign training, and learn about the electoral process. Our meetings take place on the second Thursday of every month. Follow Ponderosa Republican Women on Facebook for more information.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeese, and we're here in the studio with Kevin Finch and Jill Lemon of the Big Table. Thank you both for being here.
Glad to be here.
Kevin, Jill, let's talk right off the bat about how you came up with this idea to start this organization, because it's made a huge impact in Spokane and now Seattle. Tell us about it.
I think the genesis of it came in a weird combination. I was a pastor. That was my day job. I started moonlighting as a restaurant critic for the Spokesman Review, and
which is what all pastors do, right?
Absolutely,
right.
Yeah. So for me, just my delight in food and love of restaurants got to have this expression in sneaking into restaurants and then writing them up. I was anonymous in that capacity, so it was fun to get in and just see without being recognized.
Right, and a bit of a diversion probably from your day
totally,
job, so to speak.
Totally, and for the very first time in my life, I was able to pay for someone else's meal. I'd invite friends along and get to say, "No, I got the bill.
I'll take this." Because
I didn't get it, but the magazine or the paper paid for it. But while I was writing about food, over the course of about 5 years, I started to I guess I'd call it my spidey sense started to go off, and some of the things I'd been trained as a pastor started going, I wonder who's caring for these people, because it seems like they're living right on the edge. And finally, in about 2006, I started poking around, and literally there wasn't a single nonprofit in the nation that was caring for the largest industry in the country with the highest concentration of need. It made absolutely no sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it's completely illogical, which is why it makes this idea so fascinating. And
again, I don't know if there's a way to prove this, but my idea of why that is this is the hospitality industry. So anyone that's not in the industry, by definition, is walking in and seeing someone who's got a job. And their job is to take care of you.
Right.
So they're going to have a smile on their face. They're going to ask you how you are. The last thing that they're going to show is the fact that their life is just coming apart at the seams.
In shambles, potentially.
Yeah, and so for anyone that's not in the industry, there's be the last place you would think needs help. But when you start peeling back the smile and look at the statistics, highest rates of drug and alcohol abuse, massive broken relationships, no safety net, high stress levels, massive job transition. It's just, you really go, oh, wait a minute. If you look at this statistically, there's the most need concentrated here of anywhere in the country.
Ponderosa Republican Women is a club with members that come from every part of Spokane County. Although they differ in age, occupation, ethnic background, and cultural heritage, these women and many men stand together to promote government based on conservative principles, discover lifelong friendships, meet elected officials and candidates, hear challenging speakers, receive campaign training, and learn about the electoral process. Our meetings take place on the second Thursday of every month. Follow Ponderosa Republican Women on Facebook for more information.
If you just reach out to us, we can send that to you, and it just gives you simple ideas of what you can do with the relationships you already have. Because one of the cool things about this is that you don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to fly to Somalia to care for some of the folks most in need.
You and I have talked about that, though. What's the cliche line? Look over your own fence. There are people in need here.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make it a lesser need somewhere else, but there clearly is plenty of need right here in Spokane, San Diego, Seattle, all over the country.
And the people you come in contact with every day.
Yep.
So with those folks that you've already been in contact with, we've got ideas, real simple ideas of ways that you can begin to care to change things. Obviously, if you want to support Big Table, we'd love it. You can do that through the website as well. But the website really would be the way to kind of connect with us.
Get as much information as you can. When is your next event?
Our
dinner,
next,
I should say.
We have a Big Table dinner that coming up on June 11th. Our next event for the public will be October 22nd.
And will that be in breakfast format?
No, that's going to be an amazing dinner. Called Big Table Eats Around the World.
Oh. And where is this going to be held?
It's at the Grand.
It's at the Grand.
It's at the Grand. The
Apropos.
Davenport Grand.
That's
But we will be headed to Lebanon and Vietnam and Spain.
Throughout that evening.
Yes.
That
the
sounds
food
like
will
fun.
come from those places.
I personally have had the opportunity to be at the breakfast, and again, there are lots of organizations out there to be complimentary of, but I think the best way to describe it is I think you make it very tangible, not only the need, and sometimes maybe that's easy to identify, but how do you make a dent in resolving that need?
Yeah.
I think that's what Big Table's doing. I think that's why you're obviously growing.
Thank you.
It's resonating with people. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I totally love for this to be more movement than organization. Obviously, any
That's
movement requires organization and structure to happen, but we would love to create. There's no way that any organization could meet this massive need, but if we create people who care across the country,
exponentially it could grow.
Right.
it could.
Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank
bet.
you.
Next up on Startup Spokane, we'll be talking about the ingredients that make up a founder and an entrepreneur.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. I'm your host, Steve Traben. Joining me today is Scott Rosick. Scott is a serial entrepreneur as well as an entrepreneur in residence with Startup Spokane. And today we're going to talk about sort of the intrinsic part of being an entrepreneur. And so we've got this phrase that we call the founder's dilemma or the founder's challenge. Do you want to kind of set the stage for that, Scott?
Sure. Founding a company is probably the most difficult job that anyone will ever have. Lots of metaphors, right? Jumping off the cliff and assembling the airplane as you go. Or Elon Musk famously said, staring into the abyss while chewing glass. It's challenging, right? You have a shortcoming in your own skills because you can't do everything. And so, what I've found is the need to be, disciplined, hyper-focused is critical for the founder. Also to fill in the blank spots that they have with key advisors and really listen to those people.
Yeah,
right?
and being open and willing to accept that advice, right? Because if an entrepreneur is not coachable, we pretty much say, we can't help you if you're not willing
That's
to
right.
be coached, right?
That's right. And, that really means that their ability to not only get the right people, which ideally would be the very best people that they can get involved, and not just for a minute, but to get them long-term involved in their business, I think is really critical.
Yeah, so you have this notion, you call it leaning into the sharp sticks. You want to talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, leaning into the sharp sticks is that this is hard work, and, finding customers, getting into the meat of your, not working on the fun stuff on your desk, but really going after the most difficult aspects of either your own individual needs and desires in building this business or in building and creating that business.
Right. Yeah. And again, as you said, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you might have a great idea, you might have a lot of passion, you might even have the technology piece of it nailed, but you don't know anything about marketing or finance or some of the other things that you're going to need to learn about. So being able to lean into those problems and identifying people that can help you address them, I think is important.
Yeah, and eventually those become vice presidents or people that are in your organization. But while you're having to wear those many hats in the early days, you still need to get all the above done. The finance, the technology, the marketing, each one of these aspects is hyper critical. And so instead of saying, I don't know how to do it, learn how to do it.
Right. And we're going to come back after a short break and talk about the value of relationships in helping an entrepreneur or founder launch and grow their business. Stay with us on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler Attorneys.
Welcome back, where Scott Rosick and I are talking about some of the other skills that are necessary for an entrepreneur or founder to help them through their new business journey. And as we went into break, we were talking about the value of relationships. So why don't we go deep in that, Scott, and talk about how relationships play part in all of this?
Yeah, definitely. The individual, as they're going through this process, really does require more than just themselves, right? So the network of relationships, which includes not only their advisors, potentially board members, partners, customers, it grows exponentially from the very beginning of time. You never know when that person that you dismissed is going to become a future hire, a lead to an investor, that you're going to invest in their company or project. So the thing I would really say there is don't think of what you can get out of somebody when you're crafting a relationship with them and you're starting a business. Really think of how you can be a contributing force in that relationship and think about them being in your life for a long time.
Yeah, no, that's good. And these relationships, I mean, they're going to help you with your business, but they're also going to help you outside of your business, providing balance, hopefully, for you in your life.
That's right.
So, and then let's talk about the role of intuition and following your gut in all of this, because, we've talked about a lot of advice and counsel coming from people, but how about the gut side of it?
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect. I mean, everybody thinks they're an expert in startups and products and companies. So you're going to receive an enormous amount of advice from both trusted advisors and people who just want to chime in and tell you something about your business. So what I try to do is listen politely, but always keep in mind that you have to form your own intuitive path on decision making as a leader and CEO, which means that in some cases, what you end up doing is you listen, you learn, you take it back, and you process it, and then you form your final decisions. In other cases, you do end up dismissing advice that just doesn't work for you and your business.
And so all that we've really talked about, is really a balanced approach, right?
That's right.
So balancing the relationships and your gut and the advice and counsel that you're getting from others.
Yeah, and you almost are always correct, or I found in my own career, whenever you're hiring the person and you intuitively know that it's not the right person, but you're in a hurry, you're almost always correct. And those kind of mistakes are really expensive because you need to preserve your energy and stay hyper-focused at your business. So having the wrong person in any role at any time is really not going to help advance the cause of your business. So again, underlining the concept of follow your intuition because your gut knows.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Great words of advice today, Scott. Thanks for joining us on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. For more information, visit our website at startupspokane.com. Have a great day.
Next up on She Says, host Stephanie Regalato will sit down for a discussion on the essentials of skincare.
Welcome to She Says. I'm your host, Stephanie Regalato, with my guest, Ali Karchamny. Thank you very much for being here. You founded Anfisa Skin and launched in January of this year. Have been taking off like a rocket ship successfully. You've been in multiple national magazines, Vogue. These are recognizable too.
Right.
GQ, Elle.
Cosmo,
Oh, heavens. You got them all.
It's been a whirlwind.
So you started developing your product, which is Lulu Balm.
Yep.
6+ years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of started formulating as a hobby, and then it turned into a business, and Anfisa Skin came to life January this year, like you said, and it took about 2 years to really kind of come to life in a business. And
one thing I love about your story is that so many businesses are started when they see a gap somewhere, and you were experiencing that gap because you had challenges with your skin, and had been seeing different dermatologists and trying different products, which often exasperated what you were experiencing. So you decided to try to take it into your own hands.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. I just wanted to get to the root of the problem and started to really research the ingredients and the formulations. And that just kind of ignited a passion in me, and then that turned into an actual business. And so,
How does it feel to be on this side of it after 6 years?
Honestly,
of all this forward propelling, and then now you're transitioning.
Yeah, I mean, some days I wake up and I have to pinch myself because I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I've been able to leave my daytime job, and that's just been so rewarding and so incredible. But it feels, some days I'm like, wow, this has actually happened, because it was just so much work and so much energy that had to be put into it.
And the business actually wasn't your idea necessarily in the first place. Your husband and friends?
Yeah, so no, my husband and my sister-in-law, they actually kind of sat me down and they were like, you have so much knowledge and you have so much passion for this. You really kind of need to make it a business. And I was like, no, that's really crazy. A skincare brand, come on. So they really kind of pushed me into it. And so the more I thought about it, it grew on me. And then Anfisa Skin was born.
And Born and Thriving.
Yes.
You have a major release coming up. You'll be on Anthropologie.com.
Yes, we launch on Anthropologie.com later this month. And so that's super exciting for us.
That is incredible. Well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd love to hear how you broke through some of those challenges. When people have an idea, when they see a gap in the marketplace, what are some of those initial
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler Attorneys.
Welcome back to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalato, your host, with my guest, Ali Karchamny of Anfisa Skin.
Yes.
What do people do? Some initial steps when they see a gap in a marketplace or when they aren't finding what they need?
I mean, definitely for me, it was a hobby that really kind of turned into a business. And so, first of all, I feel like having that passion for regardless of what it is, whatever industry it is, but also just kind of getting down to the boring part of making a business plan, something as simple as that. Just kind of having a goal outlined and a goal in mind of what you are trying to achieve, and just following through on each step. But most importantly, just kind of having that fuel from within, being propelled by yourself, and not let's say, the opinions of others discourage you from achieving your dreams, which I've learned happens more often than not. So, you know, sometimes if you give people the power to feed you, you also give them the power to starve you. So it's definitely so important to not take heart to necessarily people's opinions, but obviously take advice from people who are well-versed in like the entrepreneurship and different business aspects.
And it definitely sounds like patience, perseverance. I mean, when you truly believe in something and when you have that voice that keeps coming back.
You have to be resilient and tenacious, and sometimes people start a business, they're like, this can be fun and easy, but it's anything but that at the beginning. It's just a lot of grit, a lot of hard work, lots of blood, sweat, and tears, loss of sleep, especially for me. I was balancing a full-time job and then working on this full-time as well. So I had 80-hour weeks.
And right now people see you've been featured in the magazines that we said, Vogue and all those fancy things, and they see that aspect, but they're not necessarily seeing the 6 years of blood, sweat, and tears.
Sometimes people like to say good things come to those who wait or who want, and I'm like, no, good things come to those who work their butts off, literally. You really have to put that hard work in and be tenacious and resilient in whatever goal you are trying to achieve.
Absolutely. Well, you are right here in Spokane. You manufacture in Spokane, so you're hands-on for all.
Exactly.
And there's something to be said for a business model like that as well. Thank you so much for joining us. People can find your product at AnfissaSkin.com. You're on Facebook and Instagram, and really beautiful images to follow and inspirational. So we look forward to following you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Allie. Thanks for joining us on She Says, and we will see you next time.
Cindy Haval is a freelance columnist and correspondent for The Spokesman Review and author of War Bonds, Love Stories from the Greatest Generation. The view from her porch is usually sunny.
When our neighborhood streets were torn up for gas line replacement, I learned a lot about patience. And the road crew working in front of my house learned a lot about me, probably more than was strictly necessary. I'm not at my best in the morning. I say this to explain why I inadvertently exposed a bit more of myself than I should have to the road crew working at the end of my street. It's not like I didn't know they were there. It's pretty hard to miss a porta potty parked next to your neighbor's house, or a backhoe idling across the street, or a guy with a jackhammer at the end of your driveway. But it was the crack of dawn on a Monday morning. Okay, it was 8 a.m., but I hadn't yet had my first cup of coffee. I went to the door to get the newspaper and discovered the delivery person's aim had been a bit off, and instead of tucked right next to the door, the newspaper was at the very edge of the porch. Squinting my eyes against the sun, I stumbled forward to pick up the paper. A breeze shifted the short summer nightgown I wore, the one I hadn't bothered to throw a robe over when I went to get the paper. Newspaper in hand, I straightened up. That's when I noticed the flagger at the end of my driveway. That's when I noticed the swarm of hard-hatted men across the street. The flagger slowly raised his hand to his hard hat in solemn salute, and then he grinned. I really wanted to stay in my house for the rest of the week, but that wasn't an option. So, keeping in mind the long, hard days, the crew's work, and the heat of the summer sun, I tried to be patient when navigating the neighborhood. I drove slowly and offered a wave or a friendly greeting when forced to wait for a backhoe to pass or a truck to rumble by. One day, the flagger at the end of the drive motioned for me to roll down my window. "Thanks for your smiles and friendly waves," he said. "You would not believe how many dirty looks and rude gestures we get." I'm sure his appreciation had nothing to do with the newspaper nightgown debacle. The noise and the inconvenience of the road work was unpleasant, but things could have been worse. We could have been the house that had the porta potty parked next to it for 2 weeks. And at least I wear a nightgown to bed. And that's the view, the totally fully clothed and respectable view from my front porch.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spokane Talks. See you next week for more news, views, and conversation.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Spokane Talks is about you. Give us your feedback and comments at info@SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Spokane Talks is brought to you in part by McNeese Wheeler Attorneys, Ponderosa Republican Women, and Rada Paint. We'll be back next week with additional news, views, and conversations. Please join us. So long for now.